Welcome, everybody. The topic for the day is positional competencies for recruitment and selection. Remember, recruitment is the first step, and selection is the second step of basically choosing the person and placing him within the company profile. That is it. So, let us understand what exactly is recruitment. So, recruitment is a process of attracting people. Remember, this is the first step that I've been telling it to you time and again. For attracting a people for a decent vacancy that is existing within the company and differentiating between the peoples. Now, whom we are differentiating? The people whom we are attracting, the applicants that we are talking around it, and there may be so many applicants that comes around here, right? So then differentiate and basically finding out the right person for the job. So recruitment is a process of attracting people and choosing people and placing them for the right fitment of the profile. So we'll talk about the process. The first step is vacancy. We need to understand that there is a position which needs to be manned. There is a position which is going vacant. So that is what we are talking about. Now, talking about the next step is the concerned department that comes around it. We have to talk about the concerned department as how they go around it. We need to go look for the requirement. Then comes the advertise HR advertising and gets the resume. Now this is the third step wherein the proper advertisement gets checked in altogether. HR thereafter basically again sends back to the head of the departments or the functional areas who where basically this particular position has been created for scrutiny to understand that their person fits the requirement of the job, possess the requisite skills, has the desired qualification. Now, this is what recruitment is all. Selected resumes are called for interviews. Thereafter, once chosen has been shortlisted, the number of applicants have been shortlisted. Now we ask them to come for a face-to-face interaction, and after probably a number of rounds of various interviews, the desired person has been offered a position. Now, this is how the process of whole recruitment actually carries forward. We need to understand that hiring the right person, this is again the next concept that comes around it. First and foremost thing, what is the right person? Why is it so important? Because if the right person is not there, the productivity will not reach the standards. There would be some kind of compromise, some kind of demarcation which is below the standard acceptable. Then there is a frustration between the co-workers and the managers. Remember, a one person not performing well leads to a ripple effect, a dominoes effect, which might be filtering or having an after effect throughout the department, throughout the verticals, the managers, the co-workers, everybody gets demotivated. And yes, if things get derailed, productivity gets hampered, profitability gets reduced, and there is definitely the smooth career upward movement gets derailed altogether. And then the last and the thing would be the countless hours of performance counseling. Now, these are unproductive hours, these are unproductive efforts. Counseling is no way looking into it as if to the productivity or adding it to the value of the company altogether. And in the end, what happens? Either there's a resignation from the incumbent himself or herself, or there's a termination from the company's end as such. So, believe me, the right person of the job is the most important thing that comes around here. So, one method to ensure that the right person is selected for the job is competency based. Remember, this particular topic, this particular presentation is competency based recruitment and selection. So, we need to focus out here at the very point of time. If we can look at competency during the hiring process, during the recruitment process, selection is basically choosing the fellow and placing him or her into the desired profile or the job that we're looking into it. So it focuses on identifying the candidates altogether. What happens? How does it matters? It is the candidate that evidence that behavioral defined characteristics which underpin the successful performance in the role that you are seeking to fill, that the company is looking into it, the right fitment of the person with the job acumen that needs to be determined. Remember, so what exactly is competencies? We have understood the word recruitment and selection. Now let us decipher the word called competency. It is nothing but underlying characteristics of a person, in that may be motive, a trait, a skill. Remember what I'm talking about, competencies. A motive, a trait, a skill, an aspect of a person's self image, the way he or she carries himself or herself. What is the image in the social role, or the technical know how, the body of knowledge which he or she utilizes. So, this is competency. Believe me, what is competency? A motive, a trait, a skill, any aspect of self image or perception that he or she carries, the social role, the perception, the social media command that he or she might be belonging into it, the technical prowess that he or she might be having around it, the network of people that he or she might be knowing around it. So these are things that brings accumulates into a competence as such. So basically, as a formula, if you want to go around it, it is KSA plus personal characteristics. What is KSA? Knowledge, skills, and attitude plus the personal aura which a person brings along with him or herself. So that is what is the persona of the incumbent we are talking about. It. This all together, the potpourri of knowledge, skills, attitude, and the characteristics of the person brings about competencies as we have been telling it to you. So, types of competency. Now, the question comes around it, sir, we still do not understand. So, we will talk about the types of competency. Essentially, there are four types. Remember, I have not given any earmark for behaviors and interpersonal. So, let us first decipher the technical and knowledge. The technical is critical to success. Probably, do you know Python? Do you know what is rocket science? Do you know what is the escape velocity? Do you know what kind of penetration is required, what kind of force is required to penetrate, let's say, a 6 kilometer wide breadth concrete as you're talking around it. So that is the technical prowess that we're looking into it. Can we build a tunnel under a river or under the sea or something like that? Then comes the knowledge, is basically what the candidate knows and how do they thing. It's the out of box concept that comes around it handy. It is not sticking to the rules and at times sticking only to the rules that we're talking around it. It is the knowledge that embodies the person altogether. Next is behavior. You know, certain people have a charming way of interacting with people, and that is what is behavior is all about it. Talking about behavior, not only charming way interaction would be at times it might be an impediment to the job performance, at times it might attract add value to the job performance. Let's say an army officers cannot be having only a charming things, charming values. He or she has to command a lot of respect, a lot of courage, and a lot of bravery to command the respect of his fellow men. Now that is what the behaviors is all about it. On the other hand, now we are talking about the interpersonal. Is the way you interact. There are people, you must have met many people with whom you gel very nicely and very genuinely, with whom you take into comfort zone altogether. Now, these people have a sense of an ambience and aura about themselves. The way they interact with you, it's the rapport that they strike with any Tom, Dick, and Harry as a person if you're talking around it. And that is what the interpersonal bonds is all about it. So we need to understand the competencies. These are technical, these are knowledge, these are behaviors, and these are interpersonal things that we keep on around it. So let us make a list. Let us understand what exactly competencies are comprised. So let us understand what is the position that we're talking about. How do we make a list? We need to understand this thing. First, we need to know the role, right? After that, we need to speak to the departmental heads, the managers, the supervisors, the person who will be manning or supervising or managing or probably reporting or getting reports from the incumbent himself or herself. Then comes the peer group, the focus group that we are talking about. It is the people with whom he or she is going to work with it. Does that add values to the team members? Do he or she gets aloof from the team or gels with the team and work in tandem? Is the synergy been disturbed or the synergy has been built upon it. And make a list. Remember, make a list to classify this particular category as per the position that we are talking around it. So this is how competency lists are going around it. Try to give you two example for you to understand altogether. Now, first example is programmer analyst. Remember, I am talking about programmer analyst who is absolutely genius with softwares, with coding, and so on and so forth. So what we are talking about is we're talking about designing application, significant subsystems, or probably individual program who can work on his or herself on by all by himself or herself. Doesn't require any support. Probably is open to take support, advices, notices, comments, and anything for that matter. But at times can work in silos altogether. So identify alternative implementations of strategies and weigh the impact of each. Must be able to work as a member of a team. Remember, even in silos he or she is comfortable, even as in a team he or she actually gels well, and there is a synergy that gets built upon. So we require a person who should be knowing the C++ languages, capable of learning new ideas, remember, and is able to work upon at the highest quality. What is it we are talking about it? We are talking about newer project that comes around it, the project that might not be worked upon it. We just have working, coming up with a new concept, coming up a new mainframe, coming up with a new languages, coming up for a new applications altogether. So you should be able to develop software of a highest quality in a high pressure event with other team members. This is very true. Then comes the able to meet deadlines. Yes, in a software industry you got to have the client's deadline needs to be adhered to. Experience with the complex module or system thereby. This is what we are looking into an example of a program analyst. And remember, I said two examples. I would like to give it to you. Nevertheless, now we what I have done is very, we started with this particular topic as a let us build the competency. Look what I have done. I have done a red color, I've written something in blue color, something in green color, and something in yellow color. What does this notify? These are technical knowledge, technical abilities, knowledge, behavior, and interpersonal skills or competency that we are looking into it. I have demarcated them as per the colors required. So technical denotes red colors, knowledge denotes the blue colors, behaviorals is the green color, and interpersonals are only yellow colors written into it. So you, if you can read this slide, is design applications and significant subsystem. So what is it? This is a technical know-how or complete individual programs. That what is it? It comes under knowledge paradigm. Then comes identify alternative implementation of strategies under the technical know-how, weigh the impact of each. Under the knowledge understanding, he or she should not bifurcate, not digress from the topic or the program that has been he or she has embarked to build upon it. Must be able to work is in behavior as a member of a team, is a relationship thing concept. It's an interpersonal relationship. Experienced in C++ is technical know-how, capable of learning the new ideas, definitely the knowledge, and so on and so forth. It is mentioned out here for you to understand looking into it. So let us come to the concept of interviews. Now, what is an interview? How do we go around it? The conventional interview is questions are not designed systematically. Conventional interviews may not be properly structured. Also, it goes with the flow of the between the interviewer and the interview. There is seldom equipped with the formal guidelines. There are no strict, rigid guidelines that is needs to be followed around here in terms of marking the interview. That needs to be understood. No standard format is there, therefore the process of interview can move in any direction. It might be the interviewer who might be steering the direction of the interview, or it might be the interviewee himself or herself who can be steering the direction of the interview. So what does this mean? Since nobody has the proper control, it has low reliability, low validity, and susceptible to biases. Yes, one of the major drawbacks is its subjectivity, is it biasness that comes around it. That conventional systems is all about it. So what does biasness comes around it? The minute he walks in, let's say he just looks at the manager, you get biased by it. The handshake, might be shaky, might be very confident, the way you want to look into it. If he or she is smiling too much, probably he's giving boosting his own confidence or mimicking at you. So you have your biasness set in. I know or I can tell. It's a gut feeling concept that goes around it. Every knowledge, the answer that the interviewer is asking you, you have it inside you, but the interview is not able to utter a word or properly explain. And there might be biasness as in he's much handsome, much taller, much smarter, and so on and so forth. So it gets built in. Now we'll talk about competency based interviews. We will shoo away the conventional interviews altogether. A behavioral based interview process designed to provide employers with specific data that allows them to predict job related behaviors. What is this? When I say predict, it is all about in future. It is the competency based thing. Question will evolve around personal experiences of the applicant, practical work related questions designed to be specific, and predetermined competencies altogether. Standard scoring system, which refers to the behavioral indicators that we're talking around here. Yes, this is of vital importance. Behavioral. So the CBT, the competency based interviews will be what? It should have a proper introduction, a proper flow has to go around it. It should talk about the job that people has been talking around it, for which the interview has been conducted. Then probably we'll talk about the competencies, that whether the incumbent has it or does not has it. We'll look after validation for those technical skills, the functional skills, wherever necessary. It might be in the resume, it might be with the refer check or reference check that we goes around it, and the interviewee is given an open hand as to answer, ask a question. It is not only the interviewer's paragraph to ask question, and properly the interview can also ask them, so that there are no doubts altogether. And lastly but not least would be the closeout or finishing touch needs to be given out here. So we'll talk about the star approach. What is a star approach in a competency based interview? It is all about situation, it is all about task, it is all about action and the result you require. So that is what star approach is. Situational interviews, where you get involved into a proxy situation, how what will be the reaction, the task you need to be accomplished, that needs to be understood, the action you need to take, the work you need to impanel altogether, and the objective, whether you are achieving it or not, is to be the very basis of it. So competencies based interviews is precludes notions altogether, is based on the assumption that the past behavior is definitive indicators of a future behavior. The way you have behaved in the past tense will be an indication as to how you're going to behave in future thing. A person who is very efficient will be efficient no matter how depressing the situation might be or how favorable the situation might be. Decisions are made on facts. This is to be very true. Decisions are made on facts, and structured job specification focused on concrete and intangible competencies. We talk about it. Definitely yes, that look into it. Did I say about program analyst? Now I will give you an example of HR manager. The two examples that I was talking around it, the two competencies that we need to build upon it, the competency ability to recruit and interview candidate. It's the example of an HR manager. So describe a time when you had a position open for an unreasonably long period. How do you close that thing? Now, these are open-ended question and probably a situation-specific question. Tell me about a time when you hired someone who later didn't work out, who didn't materialize the potential that he or she displayed in the interview process. How do you go around this ability? Next is the competency ability to develop and maintain job description. Yes, very, very true. We need to have example for what we are talking around it. This is very important. Describe your responsibilities. Now when you're giving an open-ended question of responsibility, you need to understand whether the gentleman or the lady stick to the copybook responsibility answers or has a flair to display that there are certain things which is beyond the copybook methods, and it is very practical related. Tell me about a time when you had a difficult developing a job description is something which we need to understand when there are no precedences for a position or a vacancy has been created. So, common mistake avoiding is what we have the halo effect. The halo effect having a tendency to mark everybody in a superior or an inferior scales, be it the horn effect that we're talking around, or somewhere in middle, or cloning. You probably is matching everybody's identical scores altogether. Something which needs to understand inconsistency. What happens is when the interview process goes long, when it goes long, with some people you're marking very high marks and with some people you're marking a very low mark, and there is an erratic natures which comes around it. Then the first impression, yes, the first impression counts, but you should not depend everything on the first impression. There is a proverb saying, don't judge a book by its cover. That is what needs to be understood. Then is the primacy and the recency of approach, wherein the last year's last quarter result has the maximum of amount of effect. That weightage need not be such synchronical. We have the stereotyping wherein people are with black skin, people with white skin, people with long hair, people with tattoos. If you stereotype people with such kind of requirements, you come up having a very biased approach, and that is what is prejudices is all about it. These are the most common mistakes that we need to avoid. Yes. So competency based interest enables you to do what? It identifies skills, characteristics needs to succeed in a job. It isolates the competencies which is required to be successful in a job. Earmarked relevant experiences, yes, definitely yes. If you have the requisite experiences, nothing can go wrong. Clarify what a candidate learned from an experience and determine whether a candidate can explain what he has learned in a job. People might be stuffed with knowledge, but when it comes to blurting out the answers, people get choked upon. So in such a case, in such a scenario, is he a good leadership material? Is she going to be the next manager in the company? Is the person going to lead the company in the forefront in due time? So we need to have other competency based recruitment also, wherein there's a demo work, something like work sample task, wherein for a programmer you give them a software to build upon it. For a chef, you ask them to cook a dish for you. Then comes the group discussion, definitely, which shows whether you have the leadership skill, whether you can dissect a topic, do you have the requisite knowledge. Yes, the most common thing about technical things can be validated with the help of a test. And last but not the least is the application form, the way he or she is writing, filling it up, the way the approaches is going around it, how short, how long, or how appropriate the answer is being given to the open question. So, by the way, remember, no diversity, it's same mindset. This is something which is needs to be avoided. We need to have diversity. We don't want to have everybody which is of homogeneous nature, homogeneous color. Some position require too much emphasis on technical skill. Yes, as a chef, you should be knowing your nitty gritties of food. As a programmer, you should know about your software and whichever platform that you work on. Let's to sum up, it is too essential to get the right man for the right job. Definitely yes. Cost of unsuccessful expenses an organization is very steep. Competencies, remember, can be cultivated. It is important that one has an acumen to learn those abilities and gives the organization a tool to evaluate the quantities and see in a different light altogether. With this, I wind up this particular presentation. Thank you for watching this video.